Hola, gracias. It's me, Just Greek, the painter. I'm watching these videos recently of I Don't Dream of Labor, and it's been interesting because I've been hearing all these people kind of, I don't know, almost like shit on the idea. Uh, and I get it, like, there are people who come from, like, this great privilege and they do these things or whatever. But there's something to be said about, like, once you let the genie out of the bottle of people dreaming of being what they want to be as opposed to what they can be to be successful, you kind of can't stop dreaming after that. Like it's this constant kind of thing that keeps moving forward. The motion of being more than someone who lives who works 60 hours or 50 hours or 45 or 40 hours or whatever a week, and then they're eating rice and beans to stay alive all the time because that's all they could afford. Like, there's more. I understand the idea of, like, there's like these upper echelon people who become lawyers and doctors and all these very, like, white collar, very well paying jobs. But, like, a lot of us, I'm a mechanic. I don't make that much money. I don't hate my job. I rather like my job, but I don't want to be one of those people when I look at old mechanics who, like, their hands don't work and their backs are broken and their necks are hurt and they're diabetic and they're all these things. They're malnourished. Like, I remember before I met my wife, like, she describes it as I was gray. I was eating spoiled vegetables, and I worked at a grocery store, and I was taking home all the food that had been expired, and I was eating that, and I think it honestly gave me some health issues at the time, and I didn't think about it, but I was gray. Like, I look back at those photos and, like, I mean, I'm a light-skinned guy, but I'm not gray. And it's just that whole thing where, like, it's so crazy to see this conflict of these people who they keep kind of bringing up these perspectives on, you live in a first world country, so you have to understand that, like, you may dream of living life in a certain way or pursuing certain things, but you at least have the ability to then dream of those things, where other people are, like, begging to then work to just have jobs in other countries. And, like, I get that, but that doesn't mean that it's still not shit. Like, how do you? There's something so frustrating about that, and I don't blame the people who came up with the idea. I don't blame the people who feel like, you have to look at it from, like, this giant world kind of class perspective where it's like, well, you live in a capitalist society, so you have these things in which they go, and maybe you want to have, like, this passion that you really want to do. You want to be a painter. In my case, you are a painter, and you want to be really successful, and you want to have a podcast, which in my case I have, and it's, you want to be successful at that, or your YouTube channel, or etc., and you want to do those things. But it's like they don't seem to realize on a very basic level, like, we struggle. We struggle on, like, huge levels sometimes to reach those dreams. And then we for all intents and purposes kind of settle for something that doesn't really take care of us. But we work insane amount of time in our lives doing it, with injuries, with all this shit. Like, I remember just, like, when I started doing all this, I was taking off a component with a hammer and I missed it and I fucking hit myself in the wrist. And for a year and a half, it hurt to do this. Do you know how much shit you can't do when you can't turn your wrist? And it's just part of the job. And these are things that, like, I'm not even asking you to be sympathetic for me, but it's one of those things where you have to understand that, like, we live in a world where These are expected things of us, that we will be injured, that we will get cancer from things, from baby powder, from like talcum powder. We'll get our fingers and arms ripped off by unsafe work conditions, that companies will know that we are in danger, and because they keep making money, they'll just keep doing it anyways. The fucking ocean was on fire in the Gulf of Mexico. Do you know how fucking dangerous that is for other people? For sea life, for like the world? And like all these things are just, they're insane. And then you work till you're 50, 65, and then you're expected, after all of these compacted, violent things that are going on, to then start to have the dreams and life that you want. And that's insane. I remember when I turned 35, people made jokes to me that I was middle-aged for a fucking person of color. That's not funny. That sucks, because that's real. The idea that we work so hard that we don't even get to enjoy the spoils of growing old. And then there's the whole thing with fucking police brutality and everything. Like, you work every day of your life and then be blown away by someone who's intimidated by you because of the color of your skin. And then there's all the microaggressions and all the other crazy shit of people just being straight up racist, but you can't really react because you need your job so that you can continue to turn gray. I remember working that job, specifically. I remember working that job, and like, there were horrible things said to me. I was accused. There was a girl who stole thousands of dollars as a cashier and got arrested for it, and they accused me of it vehemently. Like, there were people there, and they cornered me in the office, and they were like, well, we know you have a hard time, and so if this is your life or whatever. And I'm like, why would I steal? I'm not stealing. I'm poor, but I'm not stealing. Like, the hell? And I know people would say, they're just doing their jobs and they're doing etc. But it's like, in any other profession, they would never accuse you. When's the last time you got accused of stealing $16,000 and like had to talk to a police officer about it? Legitimately. I'll wait. That's what I thought. I think the horrible thing about a lot of this stuff is, like, there's just no protection in it. And I know what a lot of people who are older will say. They're like, well, I've lived my life and I've had to deal with these things and so on and so forth. And it's like, yeah, but you shouldn't want that for the next group of people. You shouldn't want that for yourself, let alone me or anyone else. And then they talk about passive incomes. And I don't even know if that works for most people, to be honest. Like, there is a fake it till you make it aspect that exists on this platform. There are a lot of people who claim to be doing really, really well who are not. And it gets blown up all the time by, like, random people who are just honest about it. I remember Gabby Dunn said it perfectly when she worked for BuzzFeed. She's like, people see you on these apps and they see your face and they think because they know you, they know who you are, that you can pay your bills, that you aren't living on ramen, that you aren't forced to have a roommate in a dangerous neighborhood in order to survive. They think because there's this idea that all of these things work out this way, that's how it is. And the truth is, like, it's just not. Like, most of us, we work like dogs. We don't survive particularly well. Like, we're struggling. Like, I have this great conversation at my job all the time with the rest of the people who are trying not to be poor, about universal income. How the simple act of basically just making sure that people have enough to just live off of, not to flourish, not to ball out on lobster thermidor and, Rolexes and shit like that, but just to survive. To simply pay to have enough money to live and to eat. And that's it. And it's just so weird. Like it feels like we're under attack half of the time because we wish to survive. And you see these things because you see these stories from an older generation on some occasions, not all occasions, but on some occasions, where they are definitely, where I've heard them say to me and to other people, well, back in the day, I could do this and I could do this and I could live off this and I could just work this job and then put myself through school and go through this and go through that. And it's like, yeah, but that's not now. Like the minimum wage hasn't changed since the 70s, I think. And the cost of living has gone up every year. Like, that's insane. Even with like $15 an hour, like you still got to have enough hours to work in order for that to benefit itself. Like, that's the weird part. People talk about it. I've heard the argument on, well, if you pay people $15 an hour, then they're going to cut people's hours and do et cetera and all these things. And it's like, yeah, but that's the problem. It's not that people aren't going to, trying to come up, I lost my thought. It's not that people are, that if you gave people enough money, they would suddenly stop working. Because most of us find fulfillment in doing things. It's that literally you see the scheme being told to you and the reasons why you can't have these things and do this stuff. And that drives me insane because it's like success is moved farther away the farther you move forward. And we'll go, that's life. And it's like, but that's the problem. That shouldn't be life. We shouldn't have to put ourselves behind someone else's dream in order to survive. Like, why is your dream more important than my dream? Or her dream? Or his dream? Or their dream? Why are we expected to then stick our arm in a hole to pull out something that may rip our arm off because we're poor or we're less educated? It's just insane. I just feel tired. And I realize, like, I have my own privilege. I am a light-skinned Afro-Latino man who has his own condo with his wife, owns his own car, and has an education. And I will say that on occasion that has given me some privilege, and I appreciate that. And I want to then give back to as many people as I can in that way. But I also realize being the things that I just described sometimes are held against me so that I can't do better by the people who have money and run the world in my communities. There was a massive explosion years ago, about 2 blocks from where I live, and it was an apartment complex that had been under watch and been warned many, many years ago of a gas leak that they never fixed, and it blew up in the middle of the night, and it broke all the gas, and it broke all the windows, and it killed a bunch of people. And like, those are the worries that we have living in places that we don't have control over things for. Like, we could die because someone else is making money and being negligent. Like, when's the last time you went into a gas station? You went to a gas station and had the fear, because this happened across the street from a gas station, like 50 feet, that the building beside you was going to blow up and the gas station that you were at was going to kill you because it blew up. I'll wait. That's what I thought. It's the only time it ever happened in my life. But then I look at the condo that collapsed on people in Miami, and then in New York, the rats that were in the basements, in all these living areas that bit children, and lead paint poisoning and all these things. And like, these are things where they're legit dangers. And then from that, these people dream of more. Like, dreaming sometimes is all that we have. I just don't know. Sometimes the dream is literally all that you have, because you're not going to have anything else. No one is handing out golden tickets here. I'm not Gusnavi. No one's giving me I will not inherit from my parents a successful business so that I don't have to go work for whatever for the rest of my life. All I can do is dream about my thing that I'm trying to do to give myself and my wife and my family a better life. And I don't see the problem of dreaming of that. With enjoying what I'm going to do. I dream of passive income. I dream of painting these murals on these city walls. I dream of living on a hill with a yard, and a little art studio, like a Picasso. To see that how these people lived in their times, and then to want that for myself feels hopeful. It doesn't feel privileged. And I realize it is, but it doesn't feel privileged. Sometimes it gets you out of bed. Sometimes it's the only thing that gets you out of bed. The dream. The American dream is that lie that they told a lot of us, that if we worked really hard, we would eventually get to kind of achieve all the things that we wanted to achieve in life. And then to tell people, and then to make people feel selfish for dreaming. I just feel so exhausting. You tell me what we're supposed to do. Because I don't feel like I want that.
Timing is pretty important, though. Not a lot of people can do that.
I just want to hold strong to it. Sometimes dreaming is all we have. I dream of selling my art book to millions of people. I dream of millions of listeners for my podcast. I dream of selling a uncountable amount of art prints and paintings one day. And I'm working on those things. I really am. but I'm also aware how hard it is. So I work. Just like the rest of us. I work. Because sometimes the dream is all we have till we make it a reality. Just a thought. Adios, Galeras. Banner out.